Hi. Yeah, you can hear me. That's great. Have you ever wondered why the light bulb has become the iconic symbol for the creative spark? When you have a creative spark, everything in your brain is illuminated, or at least a part of your brain is illuminated. You see things more clearly. Naturally, we don't have a real light bulb in our head, not even a tiny one, because it would have shown up on an X-ray already decades ago. What does happen in our brain when we have a creative insight is that we rearrange information. And we do so by making an unfamiliar combination of familiar ideas, which is actually the best definition of creativity I've come across in the research I've done over the years. I had such a creative insight in this building, a 17th century canal house in Amsterdam, where I was born and raised, in 2008, when I started freelancing. Though it doesn't really show on the outside, the building was buzzing with creativity because there were many different creative entrepreneurs working together, collaborating, coming up with new ideas. And for the first time, I really experienced the power of creativity, and that's how I got the idea to write a book about creativity. And I know exactly where and when I was in that building when it came to me like a true insight, like an aha moment. My favorite example to explain how you can make an unfamiliar combination of familiar ideas is this coat hanger. Most of you will probably see a coat hanger, and you don't have to be ashamed for that. But there was one person who once saw a drunk octopus that wants to fight you. Why? It was because he combined this coat hanger with the world of marine life, cartoons, and alcohol. He made an unfamiliar combination of familiar ideas. And when you understand how this works, you can also understand why Albert Szent-Györgyi, a Nobel Prize winner, once defined discovery as seeing what everyone has seen, but thinking something no one has ever thought. Here's another example of an unfamiliar combination of familiar ideas. Maybe quite obvious, but in hindsight, creative insights are always obvious. And usually, unfamiliar combinations of familiar ideas are more sophisticated or complex than merging a car and a boat. In fact, the most creative insights, they combine ideas from very different conceptual domains. The further apart the ideas that you combine, the more surprising the combination, the more creative it is. So how does that work, that rearranging information in our brain? To explain that, I've shown you a close-up, a strong close-up of a neuron. We have hundreds of millions of neurons in our brain. And these neurons, they can communicate with each other by sending electrical signals to each other. So even though we don't have a light bulb inside of our brain, we do have electricity running through it. These electrical signals carry information. And when we have a creative insight, these neurons fire at each other in a new network, in a new configuration, so that the information is rearranged, so that we can make that unfamiliar combination of knowledge. And when you look at a city, you can see a similar mechanism. Take Athens in the 5th century before Christ. It's not just the shape that makes you see the parallel with our brain, but when you replace all the neurons in our brain by the inhabitants of the city, and all the electrical signals by the communication between these individuals, it's hard not to understand the analogy. And especially creative cities, they catalyze creativity because they're large and dense. Let me put it differently. The most creative cities have a dense population that catalyzes creativity. And the reason is that it's more easy to bump into an idea serendipitously, an idea that's far away from your own idea. If you compare it, for example, with a village in the middle of nowhere, everybody's likely to have similar ideas. Another example of a very creative city in the history of mankind is Amsterdam in the 17th century. It was its golden age. Amsterdam was the center of the world. It had a very prosperous harbor, and even back then, people from all over the world came to Amsterdam to trade and to learn and to exchange knowledge. And all these people, all these nationalities had different skills and different knowledge bases and different cultural backgrounds, which made the combinations, the serendipitous encounters, more exotic, so to say. They made them more surprising, more creative. So you could say that the most creative cities, apart from being dense, they're entrepreneurial, international, and prosperous. This is another one of those cities. You could call it a super city, Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, tech specialists from all over the world flock together. They work at companies, they change companies, they have coffees, the employees have coffees and beers together, they found companies. There is a strong exchange of knowledge there. And since there's also many universities, new and profound knowledge constantly flows into the creative community, and it can mingle with the entrepreneurial spirit. When we zoom out yet a little further, you can even look at the world as a creative city. Thanks to the internet, we can now share information with the other side of the world quite easily. Distance is not an issue anymore. You could see the world as a global creative, you could see it as a global creative city. And since on the back of this internet, we've also invented social media, we can even easily discuss ideas or give feedback on ideas, if only by giving a thumbs up. But before you think that my story is moving into a direction of the concept of a sort of virtual metabrain in which the entire world is jointly creative, there is a paradox in my story. And the paradox is that creative insight, as I explained at the beginning of my talk, still happens in one single brain. And it doesn't just end in that single brain, because the creative insight also needs to be executed, translated into the physical world. And to do so, you need single-minded leadership. You need someone that not just guards the originality of an idea, but also one that gives direction to the creative execution of an idea. And the more people creatively collaborate on executing an idea, on making it happen, the bigger the chance is that it will end up in a compromise. The saying, too many cooks spoil the soup, and statues are never built for committees, are there for a reason. Democracy dilutes the game-changing potential of an idea. And especially when you have an idea that radically wants to change the domain it lives in. Especially then, it's hard to align everyone involved. And I guess if there's one person in the United States that will easily concur, it's this man, Barack Obama. So for complex creative collaborations, you need an undisputed leader, someone with the authority to make a direction, to give an executional direction to the idea. And an example of a complex creative collaboration is the blockbuster. The blockbuster is only possible by working with very different specialists from different fields. You have screenwriters, actors, cameramen, stage builders, costume designers, sound designers, digital artists, and so on and so on. It's a very complex creative collaboration. All these people are essential for a good and impressive and outstanding end result. But there needs to be one director that has the vision and the authority to give it direction and to change the domain it's living in. And I've chosen Stanley Kubrick here because he was known to introduce new genres in the creative domain of film and new techniques. He was more interested in creating something entirely new than in pleasing an audience. So if today, at some point, you have that creative spark, an unfamiliar combination of familiar ideas is made in your mind, and you think, I am going to change the world in one way or another, please, by all means, share it with others, brainstorm about it, collaborate with the best specialists in the field. They will probably help you to improve the end product. But be aware that you are the master of your creative spark. You are the only one that knows where the idea is coming from. Don't let your idea sort of be blended into a tasteless soup that everybody might sort of like. Guard the originality of your idea. And then, if you do all that, you one day might have the honor to speak about it in front of an audience. And I can tell you, it's quite exciting. Thank you.